Griffins. To celebrate British Science Week, I wanted to take the time to read from the story Curiosity, the story of a Mars rover. Wherever you are in the world right now, I'm a very long way away. I'm not even on the same planet as you. I am a Mars rover. A rover is a moving robot built to explore far-off places, places too far away or dangerous for humans to visit. How did I get here? Why was I sent? This is my story. Since the beginning of recorded history, humans have wondered about Earth and its place in the universe. Although scientists have made great discoveries and explained some of the mysteries of space, many questions remain unanswered. The planets hold their secrets well. Of these, one question intrigues humans above all others. Is there anybody else out there? Scientists decided that the best place to look for other life was one of our closest neighbours, Mars, the red planet. As well as being one of the closest, Mars is the planet in our solar system most similar to Earth. Scientists think that in the past, Mars had environments similar to the ones that Earth has today. Mars is covered in red dust now, but there is evidence that millions of years ago, the planet had lakes, flowing rivers, and even great oceans. Why does this matter? Because everywhere on Earth there is water, there is life. However, there is one problem. A trip to Mars in a rocket can be over 350 million miles long. A distance much, much further than any human has ever travelled in space. Even with our modern technology, we don't have a practical way to get humans to Mars. The journey would take at least 6 months, or to get them back. Humans have been able to explore closer to home. On the 20th of July 1969, the Apollo 11 mission landed. An astronaut took one famous step and became the first person on the moon. For the few hours Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on its surface, people could look up at the moon and know that someone might be looking back at them. Mars is not only about 200 times further away than the moon, a journey humans would find difficult to undertake, but it also has an inhospitable environment. But what if it was possible to send an explorer into space who didn't need food, water, or oxygen? That is where I come in. Scientists needed to create a tough robot that could move over rough terrain, with all the skill and equipment a scientist would need to investigate Mars. So, NASA had the idea to build rovers like me. The project to build me began at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory near Los Angeles, California. I needed to be larger and more advanced than any of the other rovers NASA had built before. Previous successful rovers had taken photos of Mars, giving us never-before-seen images. Other missions were orbiters and flybys, flying around or past Mars to gather information without ever landing on the planet. However, Mars is a dangerous and tricky destination. By 2007, 39 missions had been launched to the red planet, and over half had ended in failure. Some of these earlier missions had become lost in space, while others had crashed into Mars, never to be heard from again. The Jet Propulsion Lab where I was built had to be kept as clean as possible. Everyone had to wear white overalls, which were nicknamed bunny suits. These suits stopped germs from spreading to me and my environment. The last thing the team wanted was to think they had discovered tiny forms of life on Mars, only to realise the bacteria had come with me from Earth. Entire new technologies had to be invented for my mission. I needed to be able to carry a lot of equipment to test what I found on Mars, literally my own laboratory. To give the mission as good a chance of success as possible, years of testing was needed to make sure everything would work correctly first time. After all, if something goes wrong on Mars, no one can come and fix me. NASA ran a competition for members of the public to choose a name for me. Some of the names considered were Adventure, Journey, Pursuit, Vision and Wonder. The winning entry was submitted by Clara Ma, a 6th grader from Kansas. The name she picked for me was Curiosity. Now, I was ready to fly to Mars, but I couldn't take off from California, where I was built. When I launched, my flight into space would take me up and eastwards. This meant it was safest to launch where the ocean was to the east. Just in case something went wrong, I would have to fly to Florida to begin my space mission. So I boarded a carrier plane and flew from Los Angeles to the Kennedy Space Center. The rocket that would take me into space was waiting for me in Florida. The Atlas V rocket is about 200 feet tall, the same as a 19-story building, and it is almost all rocket fuel. This is because it needs to be powerful enough to launch whatever it is carrying, known as its payload, into space. The Atlas V is known as an expendable launch vehicle, which means its parts can only be used once. I was placed inside the nose cone at the very top. The cone is like a shield that protects the rest of the rocket as it breaks through the Earth's atmosphere. My launch date was carefully chosen, as rockets must fly to other planets at very particular times. This is because each planet orbits our sun at a different speed, meaning there are times that the planets are really far apart and other times when they're much closer together. Every few years, Earth and Mars are lined up so the distance between them allows missions to reach Mars using less fuel. If we miss this opportunity, the mission would have been delayed for years. Launch day arrived, 26th of November 2011. I was ready to fly to Mars. In the control room, the team ran through the final checks. At last, the rocket was ready for countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. The first part of my journey was breaking through Earth's atmosphere and reaching space. Once the fuel had done its job of getting the rocket into space, stage by stage, the empty boosters broke off and fell safely into the ocean. After 253 days of hurtling through space, I finally arrived on Mars, travelling at 13,000 miles per hour. Next would be the trickiest part of my entire journey, landing safely. No rover or space mission had ever tried the type of landing I was programmed for. It would take 7 minutes from the time I penetrated the atmosphere around Mars to landing on its surface. The team at NASA called it 7 minutes of terror. If I'd been landing on Earth, the atmosphere would have slowed down my entry. But Mars has much less atmosphere than our home planet. So as soon as I entered the atmosphere, a huge parachute opened, slowing me from 1,000 miles per hour to 200 miles per hour. I was still moving too fast, so I dropped out of the back shell, and for a second time I was free falling to the ground. Suddenly, the powered descent vehicle which was holding me fired 8 rockets, slowing me down almost completely. When I was ready to be lowered onto the surface on cables known as the sky crane manoeuvre, once the descent vehicle deselected slack in the cables, I knew it must be on the surface of Mars, and cut the cables off. I made it. As soon as I was safely on the surface, I sent a message to my NASA team letting them know I had landed. Because of the huge distance between Mars and Earth, the message took 15 minutes to get back to Earth. It was a tense time in the control room as everyone waited. Then the words everyone wanted to hear were read out. Touchdown confirmed. We are safe on Mars. It wasn't just the NASA team who watched my landing. All around the world, People turned in to see me safely arrive after my long journey. Crowds gathered in Times Square, New York to watch on a giant screen. It was an exciting but scary time. After all, it was just one thing went wrong. All contact between me and the team back on Earth would be lost. When they heard I had landed safely, some people cheered. Others breathed a huge sigh of relief. The first thing I did on Mars was to send images of myself back to NASA to make sure I hadn't been damaged during the journey. My landing had been perfect, if a little dusty. The site had been carefully selected by scientists as a place likely to have evidence of water. So now it's time to start looking. But where? The NASA team looked at Mars through my 17 cameras and chose interesting looking spots on the surface. Once something was identified, I moved towards it. I can move at about 200 metres per day, with my wheel tracks measuring the distance I travel. NASA wants to find out what is under the surface of Mars, to understand the history of the planet and how it was formed. The deeper I dig, the more information I can gather. I'm able to drill into rocks and scoop up material. I then test it in my own onboard laboratory. Gradually, by piecing together information from different locations, NASA hopes to build a picture of the planet's past and perhaps discover why Mars changed from being a warm planet with water to the cold red planet it is today. There are many questions still to be answered. What was the Mars environment like long ago? How suitable was it for life? Did we once have neighbours on Mars? The tests I carry out will help provide as many answers as possible. Most likely, I will find something which leads to more questions. Luckily, with space exploration, questions can be just as exciting as answers. Thanks to the curiosity of explorers, Neil Armstrong's footprints are on the moon. And now, my tyre tracks are being left on another planet. Perhaps one day soon, footprints from the next generation of explorers will join mine. Curiosity is the passion that drives us through everyday lives. We have become explorers and scientists with our need to ask questions and to wonder. We will never know everything that is to know, but with our burning curiosity, we have learned so much. I hope you all have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.